Ladies and gentlemen, I am so thrilled for our 200th episode to introduce two of the most beloved people on earth. And as I'm not even in the top 1,000 of most beloved people on earth, but this is also one of my favorite artists of all time and a great human being who I was honored to work with many years ago. Phil Rosenthal, please meet the one and only Vince Gill.
Vince Gill!
Let's spill the beans, chew the fat, food for thought and jokes on tap. Talking with our mouths full, having fun. A piece of cake and humble pie, serving up a slice of life. Leave the dressing on the side, it's naked lunch. Clothing optional.
What's up, Philly?
I'm a fan.
What's the word?
Oh,
What's
it's
in the
so
bag?
nice to meet you. Where are we talking to you from today?
I'm home, Nashville.
Beautiful. I love Nashville.
And I wanted you to know how lucky we are to have Vince as our 200th guest. When I asked him, and I've asked once or twice to his team over, the last couple of years, but this is the most, I'm so thrilled he's doing it now, because once he said yes, I looked at his schedule and realized, Vince, is it not true that you have somehow become the hardest working man in show business since I last saw you? Because you played with the Eagles this past weekend at the Sphere. You're playing this coming weekend at the Sphere with the Eagles.
Wow.
In between, I think last night you were at the Opry and honoring the great Ronnie Millsap. I think you might have played the night before. How the hell did you become? I thought you wanted to just go off and golf last time I saw you.
No, hell, I needed the money. It was
That's
all this
now you're
stuff
speaking
pays.
our show. That is what motivates us.
We only do this show for the money. There's huge money in podcasts.
And also the reason it's really meaningful to me to have you do this is that once I asked, because I looked it up, and the person who allowed me the chance to work, however briefly, with you, and you didn't need much help, but was a guy named Walter C. Miller.
Amen.
Who,
what a good guy.
I think when you think about the people who change your life, Walter C. Miller changed my life. He's the reason I know. You know how half my friends are from country music?
Yeah.
I'll be heading down to do the ACMs for the fourth time after many years doing the CMAs. And it's all Walter C. Miller saw me on stage at the Grammys 25 years ago, saw that I knew Dolly Parton's work. She had some punk guy on guitar named Brad Paisley, backing him up.
Yep.
And that was the moment Walter turned to me. He goes, you should come down to Nashville and do this little show with me. I think you'd like it. And to say I like it, Vince.
That's where you met?
Yes, that's how we met. And can you just, for the people out there, can you just, on the occasion almost of his 100th birthday, what did Walter C. Miller mean in your life?
Well, he was a great friend. I got to host the CMAs for 12 years, and you were there for, I think, most all of those. And that's how we met and became friends. And Walter was a trusting soul. He every now and then he'd get in over his head with a performance, and he trusted me. I'll never forget one night we were going to do Patty Loveless was going to perform on the show, and for the song was called Halfway Down, and so the idea for the bit was going to be that she was going to be in like somewhat of a stripper's cage, and only come halfway down from the ceiling. And we were doing rehearsal, and I went over to Walter, and I remember, Walter, I said, don't do that to her. And he would take my advice every once in a while, but he taught me how to walk and trusted me. What I loved most about him was the trust he gave me to host that show. And, we'd be battling the clock all night long and trying to get off on time. And every now and then, he'd need a little more time setting up the next act. And he said, I need a little time, so stretch a little bit. That was always terrifying, and occasionally I'd read the prompter. Occasionally I wouldn't. I'd go off script and just be in the moment and try to pick the times that were good to be humorous and whatnot. And there'd be times he said, I don't have any time. No playing. Just introduce the next bit. I said, yes, sir. And we just got to be great friends, and that's what I admired most about Walter. He did so many shows over the years, out there, the West Coast, and everything that was TV was Walter for a long, long time.
Walter, we were down in Nashville, and he would bring me down for like 2 weeks, and we'd have dinner every night at the Palm, and we'd hang out together. I think he had me down there way longer than I needed to just go had someone to have dinner with at the Palm. And
That's how I operate.
exactly like Phil here.
Vince, I would feel much better if you were eating too.
I'll find something. I'll find a little something. What'd you get?
It's called Naked Lunch. We're at a wonderful sandwich shop here in LA called Ike's that we love. Have you
been in LA a long time?
I've been here since '89, but I'm a New Yorker.
I got you. I moved out there as a 19-year-old kid musician. I moved out to LA and lived in Hermosa Beach for about 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
Loved it. Just loved it out there. It's a great spot.
Nice weather.
Yeah, never changes.
But Nashville is great too. You got so much going on. I think is it the fastest growing city in America?
Nashville.
It feels like it, and then some.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're starting to have traffic like the 405. You know,
it's true.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Do you live
busy
in
all
town?
the time here?
Do you live in town proper or on the outskirts?
No, I live just west of downtown. I'm about 15 minutes. Yeah. We're in town.
Vince, one of the things that struck me about, and we'll move off of Walter, but he's so much part of how because you were much more important in my life than I have any reason to make you feel like. But there's a song you wrote around the time you stopped hosting. There's a song that is, my kids and wife would tell you I have 3 or 4 most favorite songs of all time. But one of them is always, and my favorite country song of all time is one you wrote called Young Man's Town.
Thank you.
And that song is, to me, I think about Walter because I was a new TV writer. I'd sort of fallen out of journalism, and Walter plucked me into, along with, Ken Ehrlich, into writing all these music shows. But that song means so much in my life because I was a young man still, but I was working with Walter, this old legend. And I remember at the Opry where we did the show back then.
Yep, Opry House. Where
you were last night, right?
I was.
But we're at the Opry House, and literally, I just remember Walter, the night before the show, looking at the board, sweating every detail. And I remember saying to myself, I'd worked with Phil, and we'd gotten our first Emmy nomination for the Tribute to Heroes, the telethon. And I was beginning my first year in TV. I thought, I know what I'm doing. And then I saw Walter, who was probably 78 or whatever, sweating every detail, caring. And I remember telling myself, never stop caring. And Walter, to me, sort of defined that. I always thought of you two as the sacred and the profane, you being the sacred, because Walter...
I would have thought the opposite.
Walter had a mouth on him. Walter, we can't even do the stories. We'll get into... We want to talk about you. But Walter, there's famous stories with Johnny and June and a million other people where Walter... But I'll only tell you, when I was flying down to meet Vince for the first time, I flew next to Walter on the flight to Nashville. And Walter had the best timing of anyone I ever met. And the stewardess, who was very attractive, turned to him and said, "Excuse me, sir, are you done with your nuts?" And he said, "Unfortunately, yes." And that to me is...
You have no idea.
Yeah, on his 100th birthday, God bless.
But I'm willing to make an exception.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. What everybody loved was hearing him on the intercom, calling stuff and all the stuff that he, it was just priceless. He had no filter.
Well, here's the last Walter story I'll tell, and then we'll move on. You did you being our 200th guest was announced, or will be announced, by Donny Osmond, who was our 100th guest, and he recorded a message, and I asked him to announce, because we're rerunning our 100th this week, and then next week we're going to have the 200th. But I said, it turns out he's a massive fan of yours. So he wanted to reveal that you're our 200th guest. But he also said, I mentioned Walter Miller. He goes, he directed the Donnie and Marie show.
Oh my God. I was on the Donnie and Marie show with Pure Prairie League.
Are you serious?
I believe so. Yeah.
Let Me Love You Tonight with Donnie and Marie.
I think so.
That's amazing.
It'd be hard pressed to say that's factual, but as I recall, I remember doing their show, but I would have assumed it would have been with Pure Prairie League in 80, 81 or whatever.
Cut to Walter was getting older and had sort of was retiring, and but I knew that one of the things he still cared about in music, he always loved Vince Gill, always. And so, Vince, you were playing the Troubadour, and I looked up the date. It was in 2011, I think, in November. And I think that was the first place you'd ever played in L.A.
It was.
Yeah,
when I moved out there in 76, that's the first place our band played. And then, lo and behold, I wind up joining the Eagles 10 years ago, and that's where they got started in that club. So
they literally came together as Lee Ronstadt's backing band at the Troubadour. But
yeah.
I told Walter, and Walter was at this point just sitting at home. He didn't want to go out ever. It was hard to get him out. I said, I'm going to go see Vince Gill at the Troubadour. Will you, do you want to come with me? And he literally, his smile broke out. He goes, that I want to do. And
that's
so
awesome.
I then had to figure out, how am I going to get this older man to the Troubadour? And the Troubadour, if you remember, the only place you can sit is upstairs in the balcony. Yeah. So I had to figure out, I called ahead and I asked them to have someone wait outside while I moved Walter in. I got him upstairs to see Vince. But here's the thing that makes me, if you want to know what Vince Gill is like, this is right before the show, out of nowhere, and this is in the history of show business, I've never seen a headliner do this. Vince, you walked out without telling me or Walter. You walked out in front of the crowd that was waiting to see you. You walked upstairs, you sat next to Walter, and you had this like a 5-minute conversation just to show your respect. And I will always think that is the coolest thing in my 30 whatever years in television and show business. That was the classiest thing I ever saw anyone do.
Well, we were both crazy about him, weren't we?
Absolutely. So Now moving on to you, can you tell us, you're making, again, not just the Eagles at the Sphere, not just the Opry last night.
Did you see him at the Sphere with the Eagles?
I have not seen.
Let's go.
I have. Let's do it. I think.
Now that we're friends.
Yes.
Fair enough. Bring a lunch.
Yeah. Oh, but I have seen.
I got places for you in Vegas if you want. I know where to eat.
I'm figuring it out. We've done 50 shows up there now
already. Wow.
Yeah, I'm the new Rat Pack. I'm the Fat Pack.
I saw Vince with the Eagles. I have, but not the Sphere show. But I have to see the Sphere show. Now, Vince who is, again, one of the greatest and funniest hosts I've ever seen. I think you famously said it's the biggest crowd you've ever had not looking at you.
Yeah, most people I've ever been ignored by.
You got giant visuals all around you. What do you do?
I know. I don't blame him one bit. I say it jokingly. I don't really mean it. But it's real. You try to explain the Sphere to people, and you can't, because the magnitude of it is so much greater and so much bigger than you could ever explain to somebody. It's like the entire arena is the content. It's the show. Yeah. It's almost a 360 experience. It's on the ceiling. Yeah. It's on the back wall. There's 167,000 speakers in the walls of the arena, and it's crazy, and everybody's just gobsmacked by the visuals of all of it. It's its own.
We saw the Wizard
its own
of Oz
format,
there.
Everything.
Did you see the Wizard of Oz there yet?
I did. We all cried. It was so good.
we got choked up a little at the beginning when she sings.
When she sings
over the rainbow. You can't.
I know. You just go, my God, right? What a song and what a voice! It was emotional. Seeing something
and it's nice
innocent.
To see it. Nice
beautiful.
To see it treated that big, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever, when you're playing, turn around to see what the visuals are behind you?
See how big my nose is? No.
Yeah.
Now you're speaking our language.
Well, if you turn around, they're not showing your nose.
No, that's what Joe Walsh says most nights. He says to the crowd, he goes, man, I was looking back at the screen. I had no idea how big my nose was. It's a great experience.
I saw one of your first shows, I think, or the first West Coast show with the Eagles at the Forum, I'm pretty sure it was.
Right.
And I will tell you, like, we're living in the era of how do we, a band, how do you keep it going? And I will say there's literally, I was the guy who did the interviews when they did Hell Freezes Over for that video. I was uncredited, and I will like to sue Irving. No, I will never sue Irving. I'm not that dumb.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, but I spent a lot of time with Henley, who I will say people say so many things about Don Henley. He's one of the greatest friends you could ever have. He's one of the most intelligent, interesting guys in ever. He and Bowie were maybe the smartest musicians I've ever met. But there's no one who could have replaced.
Here. You're saying that in front
I'll
of
say it to Vince. But there's no one who could have filled in for Glenn Frey, and he was your friend, right?
Yeah, he was an old friend of mine. I met those guys in like 1980 when I was living out in L.A., and a friend of mine was in a band that opened the long run dates for them, and I got to go meet everybody. And then as the years went by, when they broke up in 1980, Glenn was managed by fellow named Larry Fitzgerald, who's been my manager for 42
forever.
years,
Yes.
and just since retired just in the last few months. But so Glenn was being managed by Larry the years they were broken up, and I had the occasion to be around Glenn quite a bit, and we got to be good friends. And so yeah, when they called after Glenn's passing, they said, "Would you be interested?" My response was, "When do we leave?" And I couldn't have dreamed of, I tell everybody jokingly, it took me 60 years to get a good gig. But what I've learned from the experience, beyond flattered that I was the guy they thought of that could help them carry on that catalog of songs. But the magnitude of their catalog of songs is untouchable. You just stand on that stage and there's New Kid in Town, there's Lion Eyes, Hotel California, Tequila Sunrise, and it just never stops. New Kid in Town, and you just go song after song after song after song, and everybody knows every one of those songs. They're so iconic.
Well, when I mentioned my top 10 songs, including, Young Man's Town, the funny thing is, when I heard it, I've always sort of felt it is the spiritual sequel, not musically tied, but in my head, it's sort of what the New Kid in Town is a young man being aware there's a younger guy down the block who might hit on his girl. But Young Man's Town is, take it another 20 years. It's that idea of like the next generation of guys replacing you. Well,
Don Henley told me that was my favorite song. His favorite song of mine was Young Man's Town. I love that song, and unfortunately, that song came well past the time in my career where they were going to play my records on radio and be current and have hits. We did that song on the CMAs one year. My oldest daughter, Jenny, sang
David
with me.
David just showed me that
song.
performance with your daughter. That was so beautiful.
Yeah. And the beauty of my kid up there singing that song and that lyric with me up there was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the irony is, I remember being on the side of the stage for that performance because those years were so memorable. My first CMAs, first time meeting you, I don't think you'd remember this. You would have no reason to, but I was in the Opry House, first time working there. I'm walking in the hall, that historic, and even though it's not the Ryman, it's more recently built, but it still feels there's a lot of history there.
Absolutely.
And I'm walking down that hall, and George Jones stopped me, and he put his hand out. He was sitting with Nancy on a couch in the hallway and goes, "Are you that guy that has that show on Bravo?" And you could have not, I think that's literally one of the most insane sentences that George Jones, I'll say it to your face, maybe the greatest country singer of all time. And I'm saying it to you, who maybe is the other, but like he watched me on Bravo. I think because I had Elvis Costello, who he knew or something, but that was shocking. Then I went to sit on the other side of the stage from Walter because he had me by a prompter with the presenters, and Chris Christopherson sat down next to me. He goes, "Hi, my name's Chris," which is the way people say it. Like in Nashville, you can't believe how polite people are. He goes, "Do you mind if I sit right here with you all night? I hate this sort of shit." And I was like, "Yes, Chris Christopherson. Yes, George Jones." That was my first absolute year. But what I remember all of your performances and Young Man's Town, I remember thinking, oh, Vince is like saying he's done with this. And now this cuts to the 2026 of it all, the 2025, 2026. You are now putting out a series of EPs that are, I think, the best work you've ever done. There's more substance to these EPs than individual albums, and you're putting them out one after the other. The series is called 50 Years from Home, and it's usually like these are new songs for the most part, and then usually a classic, and including like you mentioned When I Call Your Name, Patty Loveless, who you mentioned is that vocal on that's so important.
Amen.
But like you're revisiting a couple of the classics. What's it been like to put these records out? Because is this something you had? You have it on tap, so there's no pressure. I got to put out another EP, or have they all been ready?
It's been the best experience of my life, maybe.
Oh.
I'll be 69 here in a few weeks, and I realize I don't have as much time to be creative as I've had to this point, so it matters more now. The days are numbered in a sense, and I love being creative. And what I do know, and I've never equated my life or my career or based on success, on whether I was having hit records or not. I just always equated it to, was I getting better? Was I a better singer than I used to be? Was I a better songwriter than I used to be? Was I a better musician than I used to be? And all those things are continuing on a curve that feels like I'm at the best of my game, of all these years. And I have perspective now. I have things and thoughts that are not judgmental, but they're about important things, about difficult subjects, maybe sometimes for people to have. And I'm having the time of my life, and I really I couldn't be in a better place, being creative, and it's never stopped, and I never, like I said, I never let where I sat on the charts be my definition of my work getting better. And so if I feel like my ears tell me I'm still getting it done better than I ever have, that's enough inspiration for me to do it. If I'm doing it for me, that's enough,
That's the best attitude I ever heard. I want to talk to you about songwriting a little bit. When I Call Your Name is one of the saddest songs I've ever heard in my life. The thing I love most about country music is the storytelling.
Right.
Is it easier for you to write a sad song than an upbeat, up-tempo song?
By miles and miles, because, and the real reason is because I love the melancholy of music. I love the emotion of music. That's what I'm most drawn to. If I can be moved by music, by a song, by a lyric, by a song, by a singer, that's what I want to get from music. I'm not there was a great artist named Townes Van Zandt, wrote Poncho and Lefty, and some great songs over the years, and old friends of Guy Clark's and Rodney Crowell's and all my old mates. And I never got to know him too well, but he always had his saying was, he said, there's really only two kinds of music. He says there's the blues and there's zippity doo dah.
That's amazing.
And he said, I don't do zippity doo dah.
Wow.
And I'm kind of the same. I'd never been drawn to zippy, happy kind of songs. I love the melancholy
because your
of music.
up-tempo songs are just as good.
Well, they're fine. It's fun to hear a fun up-tempo something. I don't mind songs with a sense of humor. I love to laugh. I've always loved to laugh and consider myself a pretty good smart ass over the years, and so that shows up in the songs too. You mentioned George Jones. I got to tell you a great George Jones story. This is 35 years ago. I'd had When I Call Your Name had become a hit, right? And prior to that, I had done all the background harmony singing to Conway Twitty's records. Wow. And Conway Twitty and George Jones were going to tour together, and they wanted one more act, and they chose me. And so the funny thing is George demanded to open the show. Conway demanded to close the show, so that left me, the idiot kid, with one hit song in between these two giants every night, right?
Oh, my God.
And so one night, George came up to me, and he'd done his show, and he was finished, and I was getting ready to play. And he said to me, he said, son, he said, do you like ravioli? I said, excuse me? He said, do you like ravioli? And I said, well, look at me. Of course I do. You nuts? And he goes, well, I got some of the best damn ravioli I believe I ever ate in my life on the bus. And why don't you come after your show and have some ravioli with me? We'll watch Matlock on TV. And so I said, who's going to turn that down, right? Yeah. So the reason he demanded to play first was so he could get done, go put on his pajamas, go sit on the bus and watch Matlock on the bus. That was his favorite. And so we went out there and we're watching Matlock, and all of a sudden he said, well, I'm gonna fix you something. And I'm thinking that some great Italian family has made him some world-class ravioli, you know. But no, he goes to the cupboard and opens this can of brand. It's not even Chef Boyardee. It's a lesser brand. And he dumps it in a bowl and puts it in a microwave and heats it up. And I got to eat it, you know. Can't be rude to George Jones. And it's the worst you've ever eaten. And he said, that's pretty damn good, isn't it there, Sweet Pea? That's what he called me. And I go, yeah, it's about the best ravioli I ever had, George. And I got home from that tour.
I have to tell you,
I had a case of that stuff at my house when I got home.
That's a sadder story than When I Call Your Name.
Maybe so.
I think that's your next hit.
Yep.
Is George Jones ravioli.
One last bite of George's ravioli.
Yes, that's it. It's terrible. Well, that's a terrible story.
Well, speaking of food, I wrote down I have so many favorite tracks. I Hope Everyone Lives to Be 100. Sometimes Down at the Borderline with Lainey Wilson, which is amazing. Secondhand Smoke. There's so many, but the one I thought Phil should definitely know is Brown's Diner Bar.
There you go.
I don't know.
Phil just opened the most talked about diner in LA history. Which next time you're here, I'm going to invite you to his joint, which I have no right to.
Cool. I'd love to.
Max and Helen's, which is, he's opened his dream diner, but I remember from the old days just enough to know you do enjoy a diner or food. You did like.
Oh yeah,
everybody does.
I'm a big boy for a reason.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is we served that same ravioli.
As you should. Possum.
I'm not done.
Possum meat. Put possum meat in it.
Oh God.
Just for Possum. See, Phil might not know George Jones' nickname was Possum.
I didn't.
Yeah, they called him the Possum because he kind of looked like a possum. His eyes squinted in a way that kind of resembled a possum.
Not a flattering name.
For him, it was.
Yeah,
because it was George Jones.
What inspired? I'm sure you've been asked this in your career. That song, When I Call Your Name. I'm hoping it wasn't personal.
No, you to be a decent writer, you have to have an imagination.
Yep.
And you have to be able to tell a story that takes people somewhere. And if you can get a lyric or a song, I mean, a great example of a great lyric and a great song was George's "He Stopped Loving Her Today."
Yeah, which many people, when I say "Young Man's Town" is my favorite song, 80% of the people you ask what's the greatest country song of all time, they'll say "He Stopped Loving Her." I prefer "Young Man's Town," but that's the classic.
Yeah, but to me, the reason it's great is because the opening line completely takes you in. The opening line of that song, he said, "I love you till I die." You're going, oh, what? Oh, tell me more. And you're in from the get.
Yours too.
There's so many great songs in history that the first line is the most captivating thing of the whole song. Hello, darkness, my old friend, and yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. I mean, it never ceases to amaze how many great first lines.
But you spread out your story over, I want to say 3 or 4 lines. So tell the people, the first line of When I Call Your Name is,
I rushed home from work like I always do.
Okay, right away you're in.
Yeah.
Why did he rush home from work? Now, the next line is,
I spent my whole day just thinking of you.
Okay, we're with you. Next line.
When I walked through the front door, my whole life was changed because nobody answered when I called your name.
Okay, so you don't know, is she dead? What's going on? Right?
A good hillbilly song would have killed her. I missed a good opportunity. But that's up to your imagination as the listener. She could be dead.
She could.
So that's a good.
If you're
that's
hearing
a
that
very
song
good
for the
point.
first time, that's where your mind goes. You don't know what happened. And then the next line,
a note on the table that told me goodbye. So
so now
she could still be dead. She could still be dead. Left a little note that I'm checking out.
But it's not a suicide note. In fact,
as far as we know,
country music fan, it's worse. It's worse. She left you. Terrible, terrible. And then you're just you. So you're saying you love that feeling of kind of wallowing in this kind of melancholy, this sadness, because you can't, like a fast song, you want to hop around a little. You want to, but the sad song, You're sucked in and you get, are you going for depression?
Well, I'm not a depressed man. I laugh all the time, and
Yes.
I'm doing pretty good. But I do love sad songs. I always have.
Because it stops you.
Always will.
Right? It stops you, grabs your attention. You're in the story. You're sad. You're relating. We all know how that feels.
Amen. More people are hurting than you have any idea out there.
I'm going to propose that Ken Burns do a whole series of Phil Rosenthal from a Jewish perspective, going through the entire history of great country songs and analyzing
By the
why
way,
they work.
I actually love that documentary series.
Yes.
And
Vince, you're in.
You're a big part of it. Didn't you think that was beautiful?
I thought it was
what he did.
Just so overwhelmingly great for country music for several reasons. But the biggest reason was, I've always loved how honest Ken Burns told all of his stories with, great honesty and great truth, and something we could sure use these days, something to lean on. And
yes,
what was beautiful was the arc of country music. Most people would have surmised that black music was not a part of country music, but it was as big a part of the history of country music as anything.
Of all our music.
Because you go back and you look at the Carter family. It's a black gentleman that went with them to find songs and mine songs and find those around the country. And Jimmy Rogers was taught by the field hands and railroad workers and taught him the blues. And it just goes, Hank Williams, the guy that taught him how to play guitar, was a guy named, I think, T-Tot, I think was his name, and black blues guy. And just how that, and historically, the audiences might seem to be the furthest away from each other, but with the actual people that were creative and played and learned and made the music, couldn't have been further from the truth. They were all connected.
That's right. And there are some people who like to conveniently forget that.
Yeah, of course.
But the best thing that music does is include everyone.
Exactly.
And Vincent, your talent, it's brought you together with all sorts of different artists. Like, I think you duetted, I remember a duet with Streisand, I believe with Diana Krall. Like, the genre at a certain high level, which Vince is very much at, genre ceases to exist.
It's as it should. And with creative musical people, it's not a thing. Nobody thinks about any of it. It's just, Count Basie said it best, there's two kinds of music, good and bad. And
it's funny, I've heard you quote Count Basie on that, and it often gets attributed to Duke Ellington. I don't know
maybe it was
which
Duke. I may be wrong.
No,
listen, I apply it to food. I apply it to everything.
It's true.
A great thing that happened to me because of being willing to step outside the lines and do different things, there was a record made in the early 90s called Rhythm, Country, and Blues. And it was black artists and country artists and fringy artists and whatnot, and they collaborated. And Gladys Knight and I were the first ones to agree to do a duet together.
Ain't nothing like the real thing.
Nothing like the real thing. And
man, I gotta hear that.
Vince, that's the first show I ever wrote. Was the TV? There was a TV event done at the Universal Amphitheater, and that was literally the first. That was before I did Grammys or anything. Yeah. And I'll never forget it because Al Green. Yeah. I had Al Green there, and he does a duet with Lyle, our friend Lyle Lovett.
Yeah.
Who's an old friend, and I just was like overwhelmed by that show. And years later, when we were doing some Grammy tribute, Sam Moore was getting an award, and I was asked to write a speech for Garth Brooks to give him the award. And literally, I just said, the point is rhythm, country, and blues. It's all the same thing, and it all came from the same place.
Exactly.
Literally,
right.
It's like the American South. And Garth said, "Are you referring to the album?" He goes, "That's one of the greatest albums of all time."
I need to get that.
Well, you know what Vince, was cool about that for me?
Yeah.
Doing that record, one of my things I'm most proud of is because I did that duet with Gladys, I wound up being the first white guy ever on the cover of Jet magazine.
What?
Yeah, swear to God. And it was funny as my father, when he was alive, was always bragging on me and doing this and doing that. And he had a black gentleman that he worked with in the office. And he was always telling him, "Oh, my son won a Grammy and my son did this, hosted the show." And one day that he came into my dad's office with that Jet magazine, and he dropped it on my dad's desk and he goes, now your boy's really done something.
That's right. Instantly cool.
Pretty.
I thought you were going to mention the Ray Charles album.
Oh, that's a great record, and that was pivotal in country music's history because, when that was recorded, 61, I think, was, civil rights were not in the greatest of places, and that record helped show people how much soul country music really had. When you heard Ray Charles singing Hank Williams songs and Don Gibson songs, and all these great songs from the past with this great soulful voice. They asked Ray, they said, why do you want to do a country record? It's suicide, and he said, no, man, I like the stories. He was drawn to the stories of the great songs.
Did you get to meet him in your life? In his life?
Yeah, I did. A couple of those gang things where there'd be a bunch of artists on stage singing together and stuff like that. I didn't know him well, but
I had the experience of asking Ray, one of the only people, but a rare time when I brought an album to sign, and I went to his office here in LA, which is not far from here. Yep. And at the end, I said, Mr. Charles, I hate to ask, but is there any chance you'd sign this? He goes, the hell I will. I don't know if I'm signing a fucking check. And I still think about that every time I work. I've been blessed to work with Stevie Wonder a whole lot. And he loves a blind joke more than anyone. I don't know if Ray was joking or not. I think probably a lot less than I might imagine.
They did that when they did that movie about him, and he would feel the woman's wrist to see how big she was. That's one way of how he would check out a gal.
Speaking of women, another reason to admire and feel Vince is not only a genius but a lucky bastard is you've been married for quite a long time.
I know where you're going with this.
to Amy Grant. Well, I realized I may have met Amy Grant before you did because I moved here in 91 and we had another person, and I realized my first couple days in LA in 91, one of my first days I was invited to go over to A&M Records, the We Are the World studio, where Amy Grant was doing the video for Every Heartbeat.
Every Heartbeat?
No,
okay.
It was the follow-up. It was Every Heartbeat.
Yeah.
And I got to meet her, and I just remember going, wow, that is the most dazzling smile I've ever seen. And I believe that was the same smile that you had much more success in with the reaction. Your reaction.
I love that story. Would you mind telling that little story?
Oh, I love making her smile. You're exactly right. When I saw her smile at me at a rehearsal for a Christmas show I was doing with Chet Atkins and Michael McDonald in Tulsa, I didn't know her at all, and we could use a beautiful woman on the show. And I called her and I said, any chance you come and do this TV show? She goes, yeah, I'll do that. I'm doing a benefit for the Nashville Symphony. Will you come and do mine? I said, absolutely.
Because she loved your voice too.
Yeah, so we traded favors for one another in those two Christmas shows, and she walked in the rehearsal space and she smiled at me, and I just was like undone. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And I came home from that weekend and was working on a new record, and so I was writing with a buddy of mine, Pete, and we got going on a song. He goes, what do you want to write about today? And I said, I want to write a song about Amy Grant's smile. And he said, really? He said, do you even know her? And I said, well, I just met her this last weekend, and it's the prettiest smile I've ever seen. And so my song, Whenever You Come Around, was inspired by the beauty of her smile, and then years later, or not years later, but not too long after that, Amy and I had the good fortune to write some songs together. I was working on a new record, and I liked the way she wrote songs. I said, would you consider writing a song with me? And she says, yeah. And so she said, well, play me something you're working on for this new record. So I played her Whenever You Come Around. And of course I didn't tell her it was about her and the smile or any of that. And I played it for her, and she was pretty taken by the song. And years later, I told her, I said, your smile inspired that song. She goes, oh, I had no idea. She said, all I could think about was when I was listening to that song was who's the lucky girl that song is written about.
Come on.
Isn't that great?
That's amazing. and how many years you married now?
25.
All right. That's enough already. But I think it's the most beautiful story. It's great. When I saw the piece on the two of you that David showed me, I think she said she heard the song and she said right away, play it again. because she liked it so
That,
much.
that's fair.
Yeah.
And
That's great.
And I'm very happy to say that not only is Vince the busiest man in the world, but Amy, who is just an important and great artist in her own right, has come back with her first record in a long time.
Yeah, kind of about 10, 12 years, something like that.
And it's absolutely
incredible,
beautiful.
by the
She
way.
is absolutely beautiful. That smile hasn't lost any bit of its dazzling quality. And I've had the pleasure of, on a few of these shows over the years, just speaking with her, and she is just one of those people. This is my favorite quality in stars. Where they make everyone feel great. Like she had time for everybody.
She does.
You know,
And the beauty of it is, if you're engaged in a conversation with her, you're the only person that exists on planet Earth. You can't distract her. You can't, she's not looking over your shoulder when you're not looking, trying to find a better conversation or somebody else to get away from or talk to or whatever. It's really compelling just to be around her. Everybody that meets her is crazy about her. I remember when we were first getting married, I was really good friends with Don Imus. You guys remember Don Imus?
oh yes,
Yeah, and he was a character, and he loved me forever, and loved me and Delbert McClinton were two of his favorite singers. And
good taste there.
yeah, well, anyway, after Amy and I got married, he flipped on me and kind of turned on me and started like running me down and ragging me on his show every morning. And he said, "I can't believe my favorite singer, Vince Gill, lost the baby Jesus, married that Christian girl, and blah, blah, blah." So he was just wearing my ass out, and so I had a new record come out, and I told my publicist, Aaron and Allison, I said, "Hey, book me on the Imus show." And they said, "Are you nuts?" I said, "No." I said, "I want to go do the show." And I said, "Well, he's ragging on you every day." I said, "I know." And so I got booked on the show, and I went on there and got up there and sang a song. We had a little small talk, and then finally Amy's name came up, and he said something about Amy, and I said, "I'm glad you brought Amy up." I said, I've been hearing you say some pretty ugly things about my wife, and I just kind of curious why. I said, "You used to be a great supporter of mine and this and that." And I said, "So I'm going to," I said, "You never met her, have you?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, if you ever met her, you'd never say an unkind word about her." I said, "I'm going to shoot you straight." I said, "I really only came on this show for one reason." I said, we're either gonna talk this out, straighten this out." I said, "Or I'm going to crawl across this desk and I'm going to kick your ass." And his eyes got big, and he goes, "Well, let's figure this thing out. Let's talk it out." And I said, "Good choice, Don." And so we had a great visit, and I left the studio and was headed home, and I turned on his show, and he was still on, and I heard him say, "I don't know why I was giving that guy so much crap. I love that guy," and he completely turned, and we stayed great friends until his passing.
Did he meet Amy?
I don't know that he ever did. I'm not sure that he ever did.
If you've ever met Amy, you love
I have.
Amy.
I'm sure I would.
And I will tell you that it goes back to what we were talking about with black artists and white artists and country and soul and all those divisions are garbage. And the longer
Amen.
you live, the more you realize it comes down to people. Like you mentioned Chet Atkins, like an absolute legend as a guitarist, like Vince, also as a producer, like a huge, important person. But like, I remember the first time I met him at McCabe's. He played McCabe's Guitar Shop here, and I went to see him.
Santa Monica?
Yes, and I was brought back to meet him, and he was so funny and sharp.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like, and I always thought he was like this laconic Southern gentleman and probably not interesting. He was fascinating.
He had a great dry sense of humor. He was funny. He's the first person I ever saw play live when I was a little boy.
And that made a big impression, I
It
imagine.
did. Yeah.
Was guitar, but it sort of seemed like your guitar godness had to sneak in behind your becoming this great vocalist, male solo star.
Yeah, there was so few real hardcore musicians that were artists and stars and did well. Most of them strummed and it was not, I remember the first time I moved to Nashville and was playing a TV show and I had my white Telecaster on and a couple of amps, and the stage manager came up to me and he looked me up and down and he looked at my guitar and he pointed at it and he goes, "Is that a prop?" And I said, "Well, you'll find out."
Yeah, I'll
It's
show
a
you.
very good prop. Yes.
Yeah, I said, that I knew going in that if I was going to ever make a mark in the world of country music, it would be because of my singing. I would let people discover that I played the guitar. I wasn't going to try to shove it down their throats.
Huh.
But you have people like Glenn Campbell and Roy Clark, and you had
Yeah.
a lot of great musicians that were a part of this, but not in the majority. It was always, I would say, in the minority of guys that were really world-class musicians as well as singers and songwriters and stuff.
Well,
But
you even make that distinction with the Eagles. You've always made fun of yourself, going like people were mad they were bringing this country guy into the Eagles. The absolute truth is, like, another one of my favorite songs of all time is a Eagles song called Hollywood Waltz, but not the Eagles version. There's a Buck Owens version of Hollywood Waltz.
I didn't know about that.
It's on iTunes. You can listen to it right now. I listen to that constantly, and it's like, I know Buck was someone you absolutely loved it. It's like,
he was a big hero as a kid.
The line of country and rock doesn't exist, really.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's so apparent we've all borrowed from each other and everybody, and it's if it's great, I want to learn it. I want to figure out how to play it. And
When you were a little kid, what came first, singing or the guitar?
the guitar, I was way too bashful to sing as a kid. That was terrifying to me to sing in front of anybody, but I could hide. I could put my head down, and I could hide behind my guitar. I'm gonna tell you, every one of us that does this has got a pretty serious level of insecurity. You would never do it in the first place.
Applies to everything. Applies to everything.
I know everybody probably does. And you're kind of going, why would I stand up in front of people and say, "Watch this," and set myself up for ridicule and set myself up for judgment and all that kind of stuff? But
A healthy dose of it would be nice in certain people.
but you get the chance to also take somebody somewhere, transport them and move them. And that's what I love about music. I want to be moved by it. I don't care about being impressed by it. And so I'm kind of always leaning on the side of the music that's going to take me somewhere.
And did guitar playing come really easily to you?
I don't know if I'd say easy, but I sure put in an awful lot of hours. My mom would say, when I would come home, be mad about losing a baseball game or this or that. She said, you'd kick your way upstairs and be mad, and then you'd go pick up your guitar, and in 10 minutes you were fine.
Oh,
so it was real peaceful.
How old were you when you picked it up?
I got a picture of me when I'm about maybe a year and a half, 2 years old.
What?
I'm sleeping face down on the couch, and I have my arm around a guitar that's on the couch with me. So I don't remember a time that I didn't have a guitar underfoot or in my hands.
Did someone in your family
trying to figure out how to play it?
Did someone in your family play?
My dad played the banjo a little bit and the guitar a little bit. And he sat me down when I was a little kid and taught me 3 chords. And then he looked at me and big hit a cigarette and said, "Well, you're on your own. That's all I know." So away I went with my 3 chords and figured it out.
Can you also tell Phil the famous story about your dad, how he taught you to drive and what happened when he tried to teach you to drive?
You want me to tell that?
I love that story.
Oh my God. Well, I'm 15 and a half and I get my learner's permit. My dad was a hard ass, just a real tough, old school, didn't mess around, didn't warn you, didn't threaten you. He just kicked your ass when you needed your ass kicked. And that was my life. And so I got my permit, and one afternoon it's hot out, and my dad would wear overalls with no shirt and a ball cap, and he was a big man, like 350 pounds maybe, really big boy. And he's got the cigarette going. He looks at me and he goes, "Come on, son, I'm going to teach you how to drive." And I said, "Oh, I got homework. I can't." I was hoping my mom would teach me how to drive. And so he said, "Oh, God, get your ass in the car. Come on, I'm going to teach you how to drive." And so we go and our little neighborhood, and I'm hoping we'll just tool around the neighborhood streets. But he takes me to the busiest street in all of Oklahoma City and says, "Go down here and turn right." And I said, "Can't we just tool around the neighborhood?" "No, just turn right, damn it. I told you, now go." And so it's a real busy street, and there's a blind way to the cars coming over a hill and kind of dangerous. And he's yelling at me to go, "Come on, go." So I finally get my courage up and pull out. Sure enough, some guy's going about 800 miles an hour in a GTO hot rod, and he almost kills us all and swerves and does a donut, doesn't kill us, but proceeds to hang the bird out the window to me and my old man. And my dad looks at me and takes a hit off his cigarette and he goes, "Catch that son of a bitch," you know. And so I'm going 100 miles an hour, never have driven a car before. I'm trying to catch this knucklehead in a GTO going down the busiest street in all of Oklahoma City is 1,000,000 miles an hour. And finally we catch him at a red light and my dad jumps out of the truck and my eyes are this big. I'm scared to death, you know. And my dad gets out and he jerks this guy's car door open and he jumps out and he's got a tire tool cocked and ready. And my dad says, "Hey, fella," he says, "you going to use that tire tool in this fight?" And the guy goes, "Yeah." And my dad says, "Well, sir, this fight is finished." And he came back and got in the truck.
I think your dad taught you a good lesson. Like,
He was great judgment, you know.
Yes, exactly.
But I think that's a good song too.
Oh, it's all good songs. By the way, half of the things you're hearing Vince talk about, like on this, on the 50 Years from Home EPs, there's a song about so much. Like, there's, is it Move On, Move On? There's a song that talks about civil rights and talks about
March On, March On.
March On, March On. I'm sorry. On March On, March On, I think you mentioned seeing Mavis and Aretha at the like marches, or, you know, so much of what I will say, there is no fluff in these EPs. It's like, there's almost like, and even making them EPs and not albums, I listen to them at night when I put my headphones on to not wake up my wife, because it's the perfect length of time to hear something substantial. They all have a kind of theme and a power, and they usually end with a classic. They're beautiful. And I even love the way, like, the artwork for them, you put, it's like not another picture of Vince. It's always a picture of guitars.
Yeah, and they're guitars that have a meaning to me. They have deep meaning of why I have them and who they're from and where they came from. And so yeah, each record's going to have a different instrument, different instruments. One of the records had 3 instruments. That was the second record, Secondhand Smoke, that had the guitars of my father's that I learned to play on, and then a banjo like he played, you know. And he's the first person I saw play a banjo, and I thought my dad was Chet Atkins and Earl Scruggs all rolled up into one dad, but turns out he wasn't very good at all.
I just love that David told me this is a lifetime contract you have to do these.
Yeah, I've been with MCA now for 37 years.
Yeah.
And they came to me and said, "We'd love to, just out of loyalty and gratefulness of all these years together, we'd like to sign you to a lifetime record contract." And I said, "Cool, I'm in." You know,
and you're in, but on your terms. You get to do what you want.
Yeah. And they said, if you know, whatever you want to turn in, we'll put it out.
That's fantastic.
It's really neat. You know, it just is a great testament to loyalty and a great testament to friendship and being grateful for being given a home for as long as I have.
I think it's great that you've been able to manifest this beautiful part of your career like this.
I love loyalty. You know, I love my manager, Larry, is recently retired. He's going to consult for a little while, but he's in his late 80s and he wants to shut it down. And I'm the only artist he kept for the last several years after he dissolved his company. And we've been together for 42 years now on a handshake. And it still exists. You know, there's still decent, reputable, honest people in the world, and you're just grateful when you find them.
That's right. You're a lesson on how to do this. Do you have advice for youngsters?
Tell the truth. That's what Merle Haggard told me. Just tell the truth.
The truth. Meaning in the song, in the art.
In all of it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to. Yeah. My father was a lawyer, and he said, if you tell the truth, you don't have anything to defend. You know, and it's just a great place to jump
to
from.
show what a lesson, like, you know, I've brought a lot of artists on this show who are good friends.
Yeah, it's great.
And I always say they're my friend and hero. Vince, I don't even feel worthy, and I can't call you a close friend, but I want you to know you are such a teacher. I think you probably didn't even think I was listening, but there's so many things that you've said that I've learned from by example, like with the way you treated Walter, but also, like, I remember you once saying, it was a great line about, like, to young artists saying, you know, they stop playing Elvis and they'll stop playing you.
That's exactly right. And you know what that is? It's truth. It happened to me. It's happened to every person that's ever done this. You know, even the best of the best, they quit, you know, and it's the way it should be. It's not like they should play your records for your whole life. You got to move on. You got to evolve. You got to give it to the kids. That's what Young Man's Town is about. You know, is passing it on, passing it down to the next generations.
But I guess the thing is, you've passed it on, but what I am this is where I think you and Phil are very similar. Phil says Phil has gone on tour for the last few years because of his Somebody Feed Phil Netflix show, and he's selling out big theaters, you know, I mean, legendary venues now. And I'm like, I think he put it,
and I do it without talent. That's very hard to do.
But you say
Vince Gill, you can fill
Don't
a
let
theater
that get in the
because
way.
you offer something. I can do it without offering anything at all.
But he said he always says, you know, after 60, I somehow became Taylor Swift. And but the crazy thing is, I just want you to know on our 200th episode where I'm feeling emotional. I remember a million things I learned by listening to you and just the way you did things. Like I remember, you know, there's one of the greatest Grammy moments of all time is when Vince got a Grammy handed to him by Ringo, you know, who I have learned so much from. And you got to say, I forget the exact phrase, but it was, you sort of, I think you were early on the fact that Kanye might not be completely stable, and you let him know, look, Kanye, I just got a Grammy from the Beatles.
You know why that happened?
Please tell us.
I got that year, because I did that box set record. It was 2007, I think, of 4 CDs in one record, and they were all a little bit different, each CD and stylistically, and it got nominated for the record of the year, the big award at the end, you know, and country artists never got nominated for that very often. So it was a big deal. And I was sitting with the Foo Fighters, and Kanye had just won Best Rap Album or something. He was also nominated for the Album of the Year, record, whatever they call it, Album of the Year. And it was Amy Winehouse, Kanye, me, Foo Fighters, and I can't remember the fifth. The usual gang. Was the fifth. It was either Chick Corea or somebody like that. I can't remember. And,
it was Herbie Hancock, I think.
Was it Herbie Hancock? I think it was.
So.
Anyway, so he's up there accepting his award and basically saying, I'm the greatest artist that's ever lived, and I own this show, and I'm going to win the big award later. And if I don't, he said, Amy Winehouse deserves to win it. And I'm sitting with the Foo Fighters. We both go, well, what?
What about us?
We were a little ticked off. And so I won the country album of the year right after the rap album. And I walked up there, and it was given to me by Ringo Starr. And I walked up there and I said, wow. I said, this is really cool. I just got a Grammy given to me by a Beatle. I said, hey, Kanye, have you had that happen to you yet?
Ah.
And it tore everybody down, man.
No, you know what, Vince, always little things, like, again, like being like the greatest Taylor Swift performance, you mentioned her to me, was you did Red with her with Alison Krauss and some other great bluegrass musicians. And I think that's the greatest thing she's ever done. It just and you've always been around to elevate, just like with the Eagles now, you elevate wherever you go, you know, you don't let the ego get in the way. And I didn't know it then, but I still think about it now. And I think I'm so in awe of the fact that you are doing, I really did think after these days, after Young Man's Town, you were trying to get out of the business and golf more. And instead you were I think your music, I've never felt more the connection and the power. And I just think as a lesson to those of us who are now, you know, celebrating birthdays rather, you know, far along and celebrating 200 podcasts, it means a lot, your example.
Thanks. You know, a great inspiration to me is Willie Nelson. He's 92 and he's still making records. I want to be just like that. You know, I don't ever want to quit.
That's great. Well, Vince, what a pleasure and an honor to meet you. I'm going to arrange with David that we're going to come and see you with the guys at the Sphere. But can we take you to dinner if we do that?
Absolutely. Dinner or breakfast or whatever. Something.
All right. Great.
And when you're in LA, don't forget to go to his restaurant.
Oh, yeah. You let us know when you're here.
Named after his parents, Max and Helen. So,
okay. Yeah. Heard about it.
And Oh, yeah.
I'd love to.
Now you can
Great.
get in.
You know,
I know a guy.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Vince, what a pleasure.
Thanks
you
for me
so
as well.
much.
Thanks for including me. Peace out.
Naked Lunch is a podcast by Phil Rosenthal and David Wild. Theme song and music by Brad Paisley. Produced by Will Sterling and Ryan Tillotson. With video editing by Daniel Ferreira. And motion graphics by Ali Ahmed. Executive produced by Phil Rosenthal, David Wild, and our consulting journalist is Pamela Chellan.
If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend. But if you can't take my word for it, take Phil's.
And don't forget to leave a good rating and review. We like 5 stars, you know.
Thanks for listening to Naked Lunch, a Lucky Bastards production.